Imagine opening your eyes not to your bedroom ceiling, but to a sky filled with pterosaurs gliding like lazy kites. The air is heavy with the scent of ferns. The ground trembles with the footsteps of giants. And somewhere nearby, a triceratops is chewing loudly because table manners weren't invented yet. Welcome to the Cretaceous period, the final chapter of the dinosaurs' reign. It's lush, it's wild, and it's basically the ultimate Jurassic Park without the gift shop. The forests are thick, the oceans are warm, and the dinosaurs are living their best lives, stomping, chomping, and occasionally roaring just to remind everyone who's boss. This was a world of giants, Tyrannosaurus rex, strutting around like the rock star of the late Cretaceous. Triceratops, with horns sharp enough to make even a T-Rex think twice. Hadrosaurs honking like prehistoric geese, probably annoying everyone. And let's not forget the little guys, mammals scurrying underfoot, waiting patiently for their big break in history. The funny thing, dinosaurs had no idea they were living in their last days. To them, it was just another Tuesday. Eat plants, chase prey, nap in the sun. If they had calendars, they weren't circled with asteroid arrives soon. But we, sitting here millions of years later, know the twist. We know the giant rock is already on its way, hurtling through space like the world's rudest delivery package. And that's what makes this story so gripping. The calm before the chaos, the peace before the firestorms, the silence before the skies go dark. So buckle up, grab your metaphorical fossil popcorn, and let's stroll slowly through the Cretaceous, one sleepy step at a time. If you enjoyed this slow walk with dinosaurs, like and subscribe, because even T-Rex would have smashed that button if he had bigger arms. Also, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Are you tuning in from the land of Triceratops, North America, the stomping grounds of Spinosaurus, Africa, or maybe just your couch, which is honestly the safest place to survive an asteroid impact? The Cretaceous world was alive with giants, creatures so massive they made the ground tremble with every step. Imagine a titanosaur lumbering across a valley, its body stretching longer than a city bus, its shadow swallowing entire forests. Nearby, herds of duck-billed hadrosaurs honked and shuffled together, their calls echoing like prehistoric traffic jams. Above them, pterosaurs glided lazily, wingspans wider than small planes, swooping down to snatch fish from warm inland seas. And then there was Tyrannosaurus rex, strutting through the landscape like it owned the place. Its roar carried for miles, a sound that reminded every creature nearby who was at the top of the food chain. Triceratops, with its 3 sharp horns and massive frill, wasn't intimidated though. It grazed calmly, knowing it had the kind of armor that could turn even a predator's stomach. The world was lush, humid, and full of life. Forests of ferns and towering conifers stretched endlessly. Rivers wound through valleys, and the oceans teemed with mosasaurs and plesiosaurs, sea monsters that made swimming a dangerous pastime. It was a world balanced on the rhythm of eat, grow, survive, and repeat. What makes this scene so haunting is its normalcy. Dinosaurs had no idea their reign was nearing its end. To them, this was just another day, the sun rising over endless greenery, the air buzzing with insects, the ground shaking with footsteps of giants. Life was steady, predictable, and timeless. But far above, in the silent reaches of space, something was already on its way. A rock the size of a city was hurtling toward Earth, faster than anything these creatures could imagine. It carried no warning, no signal, no polite announcement. The dinosaurs lived their lives unaware, grazing, hunting, and roaring beneath skies that would soon change forever. The calm before the storm stretched on, peaceful and almost sleepy. The giants ruled, the forests thrived, and the oceans shimmered. It was a world at its peak, a world that seemed eternal, and yet history was already writing its next chapter in silence, preparing to turn the page with a single catastrophic impact. The final days of the dinosaurs were not marked by chaos or panic. They were marked by calm. Imagine a wide valley under the warm Cretaceous sun, where herds of hadrosaurs moved slowly across the landscape, honking to one another in a chorus that sounded like a prehistoric traffic jam. Their duck-billed faces dipped into ferns and shrubs, chewing lazily, unaware that history was about to change forever. Nearby, Triceratops lowered its massive head to graze, horns glinting in the light. It was a creature built for defense. But on this day there was no battle to fight. Tyrannosaurus rex prowled at the edges of the forest, its footsteps heavy, its eyes sharp. But even the king of dinosaurs was simply living another ordinary day. The forests themselves seemed timeless. Towering conifers stretched toward the sky, ferns carpeted the ground, and rivers wound lazily through the plains. Insects buzzed in the humid air, pterosaurs glided overhead, and the oceans shimmered with life. It was a world at its peak, full of abundance and balance. What makes this moment haunting is its normalcy. Dinosaurs had no sense of urgency, no awareness that their reign was nearing its end. To them, tomorrow would look like today, the same sunrise, the same forests swaying, the same footsteps shaking the ground. Life was steady, predictable, and eternal, or so it seemed. But far beyond their sight, in the silent reaches of space, a visitor was already on its way. A rock the size of a city was racing toward Earth, faster than anything these creatures could imagine. It carried no warning, no signal, no polite announcement. The dinosaurs continued their routines, grazing, hunting, resting, as if history itself had decided to give them one last quiet day before rewriting the story forever. The calm before the storm lingered like a deep breath. The world was at its peak, full of giants and greenery, yet balanced on the edge of a moment that would change everything. The dinosaurs may have thought their world was steady, but the Earth itself was already whispering warnings. Long before the asteroid streaked across the sky, subtle signs hinted that balance was shifting. Volcanoes in what is now India, the mighty Deccan Traps, had begun to roar to life. Lava poured across the land in waves, releasing gases that thickened the atmosphere. The air grew heavier, the climate warmer, and the oceans began to change. To a Triceratops munching ferns, it was just another humid day, but to the planet, it was a slow drumbeat of trouble. The seas, once calm and full of life, started to show signs of stress. Coral reefs struggled, marine creatures shifted their ranges, and food chains wobbled. The oceans were like a giant orchestra, where some instruments had gone out of tune. The dinosaurs on land didn't notice, but the balance was already fragile. Even the skies carried hints. Dust and ash from volcanic eruptions sometimes dimmed the sun, casting eerie shadows across forests. Plants grew differently, some struggling, some thriving, but the rhythm of life was no longer as smooth as it had been for millions of years. Of course, the dinosaurs didn't know any of this. To them, the world was still full of food, rivers, and sunshine. Tyrannosaurus rex still prowled with confidence, and herds of hadrosaurs still honked across valleys. But beneath the surface, the Earth was preparing for a change. And far above, in the silent reaches of space, the asteroid was already on its way. The signs on Earth were only the first whispers. The real storm was racing closer, unseen, unstoppable, and ready to turn those whispers into a roar. Far above the peaceful Cretaceous world, in the silent reaches of space, a traveler was already on its way. It was no ordinary rock. This asteroid was colossal, roughly the size of a city, and it had been wandering the cosmos for millions of years. Its path was long, lonely, and indifferent, until gravity nudged it toward a fateful destination, Earth. The journey was swift by cosmic standards. Hurtling through the void at tens of thousands of miles per hour, the asteroid carried unimaginable energy. If you could have watched it from afar, it would have looked like a glowing speck against the black canvas of space, small but unstoppable. Closer and closer it came, drawn by the pull of Earth's gravity, locked into a collision course that no force could undo. Meanwhile, life below continued in blissful ignorance. Dinosaurs grazed, hunted, and roared. Pterosaurs glided on warm currents. Oceans shimmered with mosasaurs and plesiosaurs. None of them knew that a rock was racing toward them, faster than sound, faster than thought, faster than any escape. The asteroid's journey was silent, but it was also inevitable. It didn't slow down, didn't hesitate, didn't announce itself. It simply moved, carrying the power to reshape the planet in a single instant. If dinosaurs had telescopes, they might have seen a faint light growing brighter in the sky. But they didn't. To them, the heavens were calm, the stars eternal. The asteroid was invisible, a secret written in the cosmos, a story waiting to crash into the Earth and change everything. And so the rock continued its descent, a cosmic messenger racing toward history. The dinosaurs lived their last ordinary days, unaware that the greatest twist in their story was already streaking through space, closing the distance with every heartbeat of the planet. The asteroid had finally entered Earth's atmosphere, blazing across the sky like a second sun. For a brief moment, the heavens themselves seemed to ignite. Imagine standing in a Cretaceous valley, surrounded by ferns and towering conifers, when suddenly the daylight grows strange. A fiery streak cuts across the horizon, brighter than anything ever seen before. Dinosaurs grazing may have lifted their heads in confusion. A herd of hadrosaurs honking together might have fallen silent, their calls replaced by uneasy stillness. Triceratops, horns glinting in the fading light, could have paused mid-bite, staring upward at the glowing trail. Even Tyrannosaurus rex, the king of predators, might have stopped in its tracks, puzzled by the sudden brilliance in the sky. The air grew hotter as the asteroid descended. Winds whipped across plains, carrying the scent of burning even before the impact. Shadows stretched unnaturally long, as if the world itself was holding its breath. The forests stood silent, rivers shimmered uneasily, and the giants of the Cretaceous paused in confusion. Above them, pterosaurs glided nervously, wings catching turbulent air currents. The oceans reflected the fiery streak, glowing like molten metal across the waves. Somewhere deep in the seas, mosasaurs and plesiosaurs swam beneath the shimmering light, unaware that their watery kingdom was about to change forever. It was a moment of eerie calm, a pause before history shattered. The asteroid, unstoppable and indifferent, raced downward with unimaginable speed. The dinosaurs had no words for what they saw, no understanding of what was coming. To them, it was simply a strange light, a fiery visitor in the sky. But in that silence, destiny was already sealed. The collision was seconds away. The calm of the Cretaceous, the honking herds, the prowling predators, the buzzing forests, was about to be erased in a single, world-changing instant. The moment finally arrived. After its long, silent journey through space, the asteroid struck Earth with unimaginable force. It slammed into what is now the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, carving out the massive Chicxulub crater, a scar that still exists today, buried beneath layers of rock and ocean. The collision was instant, but its effects were beyond comprehension. In a single heartbeat, the energy released was greater than 1 billion nuclear bombs. The ground shook violently, shock waves raced outward faster than sound, and the very crust of the Earth rippled like water. At the point of impact, everything was vaporized. Forests, rivers, and creatures unlucky enough to be nearby were obliterated in a flash. The asteroid itself disintegrated, but its power lived on in the destruction it unleashed. Molten rock sprayed into the air, raining down as fiery debris. The ocean nearby boiled, sending towering tsunamis racing across coastlines. Dinosaurs grazing miles away may have felt the ground tremble beneath their feet. Herds of hadrosaurs could have panicked, their honks drowned out by the roar of the Earth itself. Tyrannosaurus rex, the king of predators, may have paused mid-stride, sensing that something far greater than any rival had arrived. The skies lit up with blinding fire, trees ignited, rivers steamed, and the atmosphere itself seemed to burn. For a brief moment, the world was brighter than the sun, a terrifying flash that marked the end of an era. This was not just an impact. It was a turning point in history, a moment when the age of dinosaurs began to collapse. The Chicxulub asteroid had struck, and nothing on Earth would ever be the same again. The asteroid's impact at Chicxulub was not the end of the story. It was the beginning of chaos. In the very first seconds after collision, the Earth itself seemed to convulse. The shockwave tore through the crust, sending ripples across continents. Mountains shook, valleys collapsed, and the ground buckled under the force of energy greater than anything the planet had ever endured. At the site of impact, everything was vaporized instantly. Rock, soil, forests, rivers, and every living creature nearby were reduced to dust in less than a heartbeat. The asteroid itself disintegrated, but its power lived on in the destruction it unleashed. Molten rock was blasted high into the atmosphere, glowing fragments raining down across vast distances. The air filled with fire. Temperatures soared to levels that could melt stone. Trees ignited in an instant, and animals caught in the blast were consumed before they could even move. The shockwave flattened everything in its path, knocking down forests as if they were blades of grass. Farther away, dinosaurs may have felt the ground tremble beneath their feet. Herds of hadrosaurs panicked, their honks drowned out by the roar of the Earth itself. Triceratops bolted in confusion, horns raised against an enemy they could not see. Even Tyrannosaurus rex, the king of predators, was powerless against the sheer scale of destruction. The oceans were thrown into turmoil. Water near the impact site boiled instantly, while massive tsunamis surged outward, racing across coastlines with unstoppable force. Marine reptiles that had ruled the seas for millions of years were swept away in the chaos. Above, the sky turned into a furnace. Dust, ash, and molten debris shot upward, some pieces escaping into space before falling back down. The atmosphere glowed with fire, casting an eerie light across the planet. For a brief moment, the world was brighter than day, a terrifying flash that marked the beginning of the end. These first seconds were enough to set the stage for global catastrophe. The dinosaurs had survived predators, storms, and volcanic eruptions. But nothing in their long reign had prepared them for this. The destruction was immediate, unstoppable, and absolute. And yet, this was only the beginning. The firestorms, the darkness, and the long winter were still to come. The asteroid's impact at Chicxulub unleashed more than shockwaves and tsunamis. In the hours that followed, the Earth itself seemed to catch fire. Molten debris, blasted high into the atmosphere, began to rain back down across the globe. Each fragment was a glowing ember, falling through the skies like fiery rain. As these fragments re-entered the atmosphere, they ignited the air. Temperatures soared, forests erupted into flames, and vast regions of land were consumed by firestorms. Imagine entire continents glowing red at night. The horizon lit not by the sun, but by walls of flame stretching as far as the eye could see. Dinosaurs caught in these infernos had no chance. Herds of hadrosaurs fled in panic, their hunks drowned out by the crackle of burning forests. Triceratops, horns raised, tried to push through walls of smoke, but the heat was overwhelming. Even Tyrannosaurus rex, the mighty predator, was powerless against a world that had turned into a furnace. The oceans reflected the chaos. Ash and burning debris fell into the seas, heating the surface waters and choking marine life. Waves carried smoke and soot across coastlines, while creatures beneath the waves swam in confusion as the world above burned. The firestorms were not local, they were global. From North America to Asia, from Africa to Europe, forests ignited, grasslands smoldered, and the skies glowed with a terrifying red haze. The Earth became a planet of fire, its surface scarred by flames that raged for days. And yet this was only one stage of the catastrophe. The fires consumed oxygen, filled the skies with smoke, and set the stage for the next disaster. Once the flames died down, the world would not return to normal. Instead, the skies would darken, the sun would fade, and a long, cold winter was about to begin. The firestorms that swept across the planet left behind more than scorched forests and smoldering plains. As the flames raged, billions of tons of ash, soot, and pulverized rock were hurled into the atmosphere. The skies, once bright and blue, began to change. Slowly at first, then suddenly, the sunlight dimmed. Across the world, creatures looked up to see a strange twilight spreading overhead. Dinosaurs that had lived their entire lives under warm, golden skies now found themselves beneath a ceiling of smoke and dust. The air grew heavy, the horizon blurred, and the once familiar sun became a faint, ghostly glow. Day after day, the darkness deepened. Ash clouds circled the globe, carried by winds into every corner of the earth. Even regions far from the impact site were swallowed by shadow. Forests stood silent under the dim light. Rivers reflected only a dull gray sky, and oceans shimmered with an eerie gloom. The temperature began to drop. Without sunlight, plants struggled to grow. Leaves wilted, flowers failed to bloom, and entire forests began to weaken. The food chains that had thrived worked for millions of years were suddenly fragile, their foundations crumbling in the absence of light. For the dinosaurs, this was bewildering. Hadrosaurs honked nervously in the gloom, their calls echoing across valleys that no longer felt safe. Triceratops grazed less, their food dwindling. Tyrannosaurus rex prowled under skies that no longer offered warmth, its kingdom shrinking with every passing day. Even the mighty oceans, once teeming with life, grew colder and darker, their creatures struggling in the shadows. The Earth had entered a new phase, a world where fire had given way to darkness. The skies were no longer a source of life, but a blanket of ash, sealing the planet in shadow. And beneath that shadow, the stage was set for the next catastrophe, a global winter that would test the survival of every living thing. The fires had burned themselves out, but the true catastrophe was only beginning. As billions of tons of ash, soot, and pulverized rock filled the atmosphere, the Earth's skies turned into a thick, choking blanket. Sunlight, once the engine of life, was blocked. The world slipped into shadow, and with shadow came cold. Temperatures dropped rapidly. Days felt like twilight. Nights were darker than ever, and the warmth that had sustained forests and oceans for millions of years vanished. The planet entered what scientists call a nuclear winter, a global freeze triggered not by war, but by the asteroid's fury. Plants were the first to suffer. Without sunlight, photosynthesis slowed to a crawl. Leaves wilted, forests weakened, and crops of the Cretaceous world, ferns, conifers, flowering plants, began to die. With plants gone, herbivores struggled. Hadrosaurs honked less, their herds thinning as food ran out. Triceratops, once steady grazers, found themselves wandering through barren landscapes, their massive bodies starving in silence. Predators fared no better. Tyrannosaurus rex, the mighty hunter, prowled through valleys that no longer echoed with prey. The king of dinosaurs was reduced to desperation, its reign collapsing as the food chains beneath it crumbled. The oceans, too, fell into chaos. With less sunlight, plankton, the foundation of marine life, began to vanish. Creatures that depended on them, from tiny fish to massive mosasaurs, faced starvation. The seas grew colder, darker, and emptier. The global winter was relentless. For months, then years, the Earth remained cloaked in shadow. Temperatures dropped, ecosystems collapsed, and survival became a desperate struggle. The dinosaurs, who had thrived for over 160 million years, now faced a world that no longer supported them, and yet not everything perished. In the cracks of this frozen world, small creatures endured. Mammals scurried underground, birds found ways to adapt, and life clung to survival in places where giants could not. The winter was merciless, but it was also a test, one that would decide which species would vanish and which would inherit the Earth. The global winter had begun, and with it came the slow unraveling of the delicate web of life. Food chains, which had sustained the dinosaurs for millions of years, started to collapse one link at a time. It began with the plants. Without sunlight, photosynthesis faltered. Ferns shriveled, conifers dropped their needles, and flowering plants failed to bloom. Forests that had once stretched endlessly across the Cretaceous world grew thin and lifeless. The green carpet that fed herbivores was vanishing, leaving them to wander through barren landscapes in search of food that no longer existed. Herbivores were the next to suffer. Hadrosaurs, once noisy and abundant, honked less and less as their herds thinned. Triceratops, with their massive bodies, struggled to find enough to eat, their strength fading with each passing day. Even the gentle titanosaur giants, who had once shaken the ground with their footsteps, began to starve. Predators followed soon after. Tyrannosaurus rex, the mighty hunter, prowled valleys that no longer echoed with prey. Its kingdom was crumbling, not because of rivals, but because there was nothing left to hunt. Raptors, once swift and cunning, grew weaker, their packs breaking apart as hunger gnawed at them. The oceans mirrored the same tragedy. With sunlight-blocked plankton, the foundation of marine life dwindled. Fish populations collapsed, and the great marine reptiles, like mosasaurs and plesiosaurs, found themselves in seas that no longer offered abundance. The food chains beneath the waves unraveled just as quickly as those on land. The collapse was relentless, a domino effect that spared no creature. Plants died, herbivores starved, predators followed, and ecosystems that had thrived for millions of years fell apart in a matter of months. The age of giants was ending, not with a single blow, but with the slow, merciless unraveling of the food web that had sustained them. And yet, in the shadows of this collapse, small survivors endured. Mammals scurried underground, feeding on seeds and insects. Birds, descendants of dinosaurs, found ways to adapt. Life was shrinking, but it was not gone. The collapse of food chains was the end for the dinosaurs, but it was also the beginning of something new. While the land burned and skies darkened, the oceans vast and seemingly eternal were thrown into turmoil. The asteroid's impact had struck near the coast, and the seas absorbed much of its fury. In the very first hours, colossal tsunamis surged outward from the impact site, waves taller than skyscrapers racing across coastlines. Entire marine ecosystems were ripped apart as water crashed inland, dragging forests, animals, and debris back into the sea. But the chaos did not end with the waves. The oceans themselves began to change. Dust, ash, and molten rock rained down into the waters, heating the surface and choking it with debris. The sunlight that once penetrated the waves was blocked by the thick veil of ash in the atmosphere, plunging the seas into shadow. Without light, plankton, the tiny organisms that formed the foundation of marine food chains, began to die. As plankton vanished, everything above them in the food web faltered. Small fish starved, larger predators followed, and the great marine reptiles, mosasaurs and plesiosaurs, found themselves in seas that no longer offered abundance. The oceans, once teeming with life, grew eerily quiet. The chemistry of the seas shifted to volcanic gases, and impact debris made the waters more acidic, stressing coral reefs and dissolving shells. Creatures that had thrived for millions of years suddenly faced conditions they could not endure. The oceans, which had always been a cradle of life, became hostile. Imagine swimming through those waters, once vibrant, now murky and lifeless. The silence would be haunting. No schools of fish darting through reefs, no predators lurking in the depths, only the slow collapse of ecosystems that had thrived since the dawn of time. The chaos in the oceans mirrored the devastation on land. Food chains collapsed, habitats vanished, and survival became nearly impossible. The seas, which had seemed eternal, were unraveling just as quickly as the forests above. And yet, even here, some life clung to survival. Tiny creatures adapted, hiding in the shadows, enduring the cold and the dark. The oceans were in chaos, but they were not empty. They were reshaping themselves, preparing for a new age that would rise from the ruins. The collapse of food chains and the chaos in the oceans brought the age of dinosaurs to its breaking point. For over 160 million years, these giants had ruled the earth, surviving predators, storms, and volcanic eruptions. But now the world itself had turned against them. Herbivores were the first to fade. Without plants, their massive bodies could not be sustained. Hadrosaurs, once noisy herds honking across valleys, grew silent as their numbers dwindled. Triceratops, with its horns and frill, wandered through barren landscapes, weakened by hunger. Even the titanosaur giants, who had once shaken the ground with their footsteps, collapsed under the weight of starvation. Predators followed soon after. Tyrannosaurus rex, the mighty hunter, prowled valleys that no longer echoed with prey. Its reign was ending, not because of rivals, but because there was nothing left to hunt. Raptors, once swift and cunning, grew weaker, their packs breaking apart as hunger gnawed at them. The kings and queens of the Cretaceous were reduced to shadows of their former selves. The skies remained dark, the air heavy with ash, and the cold relentless. Firestorms had scarred the land, tsunamis had reshaped the coasts, and the global winter had stolen the warmth of the sun. The dinosaurs, creatures built for a world of abundance, could not adapt to a world of scarcity. One by one, species vanished. The great diversity of dinosaurs, from towering sauropods to armored ankylosaurs, slipped into extinction. Their bones would remain buried in the earth, waiting to be discovered millions of years later. But their reign, their dominance, their age was over. And yet, not all life perished. In the shadows of this collapse, small survivors endured. Mammals scurried underground, feeding on seeds and insects. Birds, descendants of dinosaurs, found ways to adapt. Life was shrinking, but it was not gone. The end of the dinosaurs was not the end of the story. It was the beginning of a new chapter in Earth's history. The giants had fallen, but the planet was preparing to rise again, reshaped by catastrophe, ready for new rulers to emerge. While the giants fell, the smallest of Earth's inhabitants found ways to endure. The asteroid's impact had plunged the planet into fire, darkness, and cold, but survival favored those who could adapt quickly, hide well, and live on. Little mammals, tiny and unremarkable compared to dinosaurs, became unlikely survivors. Many were burrowers, digging into the soil to escape the freezing air and falling debris. In their underground shelters, they fed on seeds, roots, and insects, resources that remained even when forests collapsed. Their small size meant they needed less food, and their ability to hide gave them protection from the chaos above. Birds, descendants of dinosaurs, also endured. Unlike their massive relatives, they were lightweight, adaptable, and able to fly to new areas in search of food. Some species fed on seeds that could survive long periods without sunlight, giving them a lifeline through the global winter. Their resilience would allow them to flourish in the new world that followed. Insects thrived in the shadows. Beetles, ants, and other tiny creatures fed on decaying plants and animals, recycling what remained of the old ecosystems. They became the hidden backbone of survival, keeping the cycle of life moving even as larger species vanished. Even in the oceans, small survivors endured. Tiny fish, plankton, and resilient shell-bearing creatures found ways to adapt to the colder, darker seas. While the great marine reptiles perished, these smaller species clung to existence, waiting for the oceans to recover. The survival of small creatures was not dramatic or heroic. It was quiet, hidden, and humble, but it was enough. In the ruins of the dinosaur age, these tiny survivors carried the spark of life forward. They would become the ancestors of new lineages, shaping the future of Earth in ways the dinosaurs never could. The giants had fallen, but the small had endured. And from their endurance, a new age was about to rise. When the asteroid struck and the age of dinosaurs collapsed, not all of their kin vanished. Among the chaos, one lineage endured: the birds. Their survival was not luck alone. It was the result of remarkable adaptations that gave them an edge in a world turned upside down. Unlike their massive dinosaur relatives, birds were small and lightweight. This meant they required less food to survive. In a world where plants withered and herbivores starved, being small was a powerful advantage. Many early birds could eat seeds, insects, and other hardy foods that remained available even when forests collapsed. Seeds, in particular, could survive long periods buried in soil, waiting for better conditions. Birds that fed on them had a steady lifeline through the global winter. Birds could fly to new areas in search of food and shelter. Their ability to travel long distances gave them access to scattered resources that land-bound dinosaurs could not reach. Some species also nested in protected areas, keeping their young safe from the harsh environment. Like mammals, some birds adapted by hiding in sheltered environments, caves, dense vegetation, or burrows. Their resilience allowed them to endure the cold, the darkness, and the scarcity of food. Birds were not strangers to hardship. As descendants of small theropod dinosaurs, they had already evolved traits like feathers, high metabolisms, and efficient lungs. These features helped them regulate body temperature and survive in climates that grew colder after the impact. The Earth had been scarred by fire, shadow, and ice. Forests had burned, oceans had boiled, and the skies had turned dark for years. Yet even in the aftermath of catastrophe, the planet carried within it the quiet resilience of life. Slowly, painfully, the Earth began to heal. As the ash and soot settled, the skies cleared. Sunlight, faint at first, began to pierce through the haze. The warmth returned, melting the grip of the global winter. Rivers shimmered again, forests stirred, and the rhythm of day and night regained its balance. The first signs of recovery came from plants. Hardy ferns sprouted across scorched landscapes, their green fronds pushing through layers of ash. Grasses followed, spreading across plains that had once been ruled by dinosaurs. Slowly, flowering plants returned, painting the earth with color once more. With plants regaining their foothold, herbivores among the surviving species found food again. Small mammals scurried through the undergrowth, feeding on seeds and insects. Birds, descendants of dinosaurs, filled the skies with new songs. Insects thrived, recycling nutrients and keeping ecosystems alive. The seas, once dark and acidic, began to recover as sunlight reached their depths again. Plankton returned, restoring the foundation of marine food chains. Coral reefs slowly rebuilt, and fish populations grew. The oceans, though forever changed, regained their role as cradles of life. The Earth was not the same as before. The giants were gone. their reign ended. But the absence of dinosaurs opened space for new creatures to rise. Mammals expanded into niches once dominated by reptiles. Birds diversified into countless forms. The planet was reshaping itself, preparing for a new age. The recovery was slow, measured in centuries, but it was steady. From destruction came renewal, and from renewal came possibility. The Earth had endured catastrophe, and in its endurance, it had created the foundation for the future, a world where new rulers would emerge, and life would continue its endless story. The fall of the dinosaurs left the Earth strangely quiet. The thunderous footsteps of giants had faded, the skies had cleared, and the forests were beginning to regrow. Into this silence stepped the mammals' small survivors, who had endured the catastrophe and were now ready to shape the future. For millions of years, mammals had lived in the shadows of dinosaurs. They were tiny, nocturnal, and cautious, scurrying through burrows and forests, while giants ruled above. But their very smallness had been their strength. When the asteroid struck, mammals survived by hiding underground, feeding on seeds, roots, and insects, resources that endured even when forests collapsed. Now, with the dinosaurs gone, mammals emerged into the open. The world was theirs to explore. The extinction of dinosaurs left vast ecological gaps. No more towering sauropods to strip the trees. No more tyrannosaurs to dominate the hunt. Mammals began to expand into these empty niches. Some grew larger, others became faster, and many diversified into new forms. The age of giants had ended, but the age of adaptability had begun. Mammals had another secret weapon. They were warm-blooded. This allowed them to regulate their body temperature in the cold, dark world left behind by the asteroid. While reptiles struggled, mammals endured, keeping their bodies active even in the chill of the global winter. Mammals also carried the seeds of intelligence. Their brains were relatively larger than those of many reptiles, giving them flexibility in behavior. They could learn, adapt, and solve problems in ways that gave them an edge in survival. Over time, this intelligence would become one of their greatest strengths, paving the way for complex societies and, eventually, human civilization. From small beginnings, mammals began their climb toward dominance. Rodent-like creatures scurried across recovering forests. Early primates explored the trees. Hoofed mammals grazed on new grasslands. Each step forward was slow, but together they reshaped the earth. The rise of mammals was not dramatic like the fall of dinosaurs. It was quiet, steady, and persistent, but it was enough. In the ruins of the old world, mammals built the foundation of the new. The asteroid had ended one age, but it had also opened the door to another. The age of dinosaurs was gone, and the age of mammals had begun, an age that would eventually lead to us. Millions of years after the dinosaurs vanished, the mystery of their extinction lingered. Fossils told the story of their existence, but not of their sudden disappearance. It took centuries of human curiosity, careful study, and groundbreaking discoveries for scientists to piece together the truth of what happened at the end of the Cretaceous. Paleontologists noticed something strange in the fossil record. Dinosaurs thrived for millions of years, but then their remains abruptly stopped appearing in younger rock layers. This sharp boundary hinted at a sudden, catastrophic event rather than a slow decline. Geologists studying rock layers around the world found a thin band of clay separating Cretaceous fossils from those of the Paleogene period. This layer, known as the KPG boundary, was the same everywhere from Italy to New Zealand. It marked the exact moment of mass extinction. In the late 1970s, scientists Luis and Walter Alvarez made a stunning discovery. The KPG boundary contained unusually high levels of iridium, a rare element on Earth but common in asteroids. This suggested that something extraterrestrial had struck the planet. Their asteroid impact hypothesis was bold, but it explained the sudden disappearance of dinosaurs. For years, the asteroid theory was debated. Then, in the 1990s, geologists identified the Chicxulub crater, buried beneath Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. It was massive, over 180 kilometers wide, and dated precisely to 66 million years ago, the time of the extinction. This was the smoking gun, the impact site that had changed the world. Other clues supported the theory. Shocked quartz formed only under extreme pressure. Tsunami deposits and soot from global firestorms were all found in rocks from the same time. Together, they painted a vivid picture of catastrophe, an asteroid impact that unleashed fire, darkness, and cold. Through fossils, chemistry, geology, and physics, scientists pieced together the truth. Dinosaurs did not simply fade away. They were victims of a sudden, world-changing event. The asteroid impact at Chicxulub was the key, and the evidence was written in the rocks beneath our feet. The mystery was solved not by a single discovery, but by generations of scientists asking questions, testing ideas, and following the clues. Their work transformed the extinction of the dinosaurs from speculation into one of the most dramatic stories ever told about life on Earth. Though the dinosaurs vanished 66 million years ago, their story did not end with extinction. Their legacy still echoes across the Earth, shaping the world we live in today. The bones of dinosaurs, buried deep in rock, became silent storytellers. Each fossil is a time capsule, preserving the memory of creatures that once ruled the planet. From towering sauropods to fierce tyrannosaurs, these remains remind us of the incredible diversity of life that came before us. Not all dinosaurs disappeared. Birds, their living descendants, carry the legacy forward every day. The sparrows in our gardens, the eagles soaring above mountains, and the penguins waddling across icy shores are all part of the dinosaur family tree. In their feathers, flight, and songs, the spirit of the dinosaurs lives on. The extinction of the dinosaurs teaches us about resilience and fragility. Even the mightiest creatures can fall when the world changes suddenly. Yet life itself endures, adapting and reshaping. The dinosaurs remind us that survival is not about size or strength alone, but about flexibility and endurance. Dinosaurs continue to inspire wonder. They spark curiosity in children, fuel scientific discovery, and remind us of the vastness of Earth's history. Their story is not just about loss, it is about the beauty of life's endless ability to evolve. And so, the tale of the dinosaurs comes to a gentle close. From their rise to their fall, from the firestorms to the quiet survival of birds and mammals, their story is woven into the fabric of our planet. Tonight, as you drift into dreams, imagine the great creatures that once walked the earth, their footsteps echoing across time. The dinosaurs are gone, but their legacy remains in fossils, in birds, and in the lessons they leave behind. Their age has ended, but their memory still roams the earth. Close your eyes now. Let the ancient world fade into the stars, and rest knowing that life always finds a way. Good night.